I just spent the day at the iPhone event at Apple headquarters, and then I spent the evening researching all the things they didn't mention in the keynote. So I'm going to break down everything that's important for photographers, filmmakers, because I use the iPhone in my professional workflow all the time, so we're going to go through a lot of the details here. And what was different this year, hasn't happened in a while, is we got a lot of hands-on time testing the cameras, and I was actually able to take sample photos that I'm going to be able to show you, so stick around to the end of the video and we're going to dig into them. Now, if you really care about photo and video, you're probably most interested in the new iPhone 17 Pro, which I'll talk about the most towards the end, but let's start off with some of the announcements that affect everything, including the new iPhone 17 and the completely new form factor of the iPhone Air. First, some great news for everybody, not just photographers, but the base storage has been bumped up from 128 gigabytes to 256. And Ceramic Shield, which is what Apple calls the protective layer on top of the screen, has been updated, and I really hope this delivers on its promise, because on my iPhone 16, that screen is so scratched that it almost makes my photos look less in focus. Like it really took a beating in a way that older iPhones didn't. And they say that this new Ceramic Shield has 3 times better scratch protection. I really hope that's the case, because as your screen starts to wear out, it just feels like your photography isn't quite as crisp. So I was thinking about putting a screen protector on for the first few months at least to keep things clean. We'll see. I know there's trade-offs between being more shatterproof and scratch-proof. Hopefully this is both. Looking at the main camera, the 1X, there have not been significant upgrades. So across the whole line, basically expect the same results there. But the big one, the thing I did not see coming, it was not leaked, is the selfie camera now has a square sensor. And if you don't follow me on here or Threads or Twitter, you may not know, I've been asking for square sensors for a long time now, like years and years. The big advantage, which Apple fully understood here, is now you can shoot in vertical or horizontal orientation without turning your phone. So probably the most common use case is you'll hold your iPhone in a vertical orientation and it'll just fit everybody in there. It can do it automatically using center stage AI features where it's detecting people and expanding the frame to make sure that they're there, because this is a very wide lens. And this center stage branding for cameras is something they've been adding to a lot of Apple products like the Macs, and I don't really like the way they've been implemented there. Like on the Studio display or the MacBook Pro, it's an ultra wide lens but with a really small sensor, so you're usually cropping into it and the image quality is not great. This is still called center stage, but they did it differently. They did it right here. They made the sensor over 50% larger than the old selfie camera. So now we have this big, beautiful sensor, which makes a huge difference in image quality. And that's what they're slightly cropping into. But you can also still use the whole thing edge to edge. One weird feature I discovered when I was testing this hands-on is you can't actually take a square image with it, which is sort of strange to me because it is a square sensor. Maybe third-party apps can take advantage of that, but you can take either wide or tall photos that are going to be able to fit you and everybody you want in the background. And a feature that snuck by me, I didn't see this till I watched the keynote again, is that they're applying the same technology as action mode to that selfie camera. So it is super stabilized. If you're, let's say, running and recording a selfie, something like that, it should be very stable. I'm going to test that later. They also added dual capture to the camera app. This is something iPhone hardware has been able to do for a while, so third-party apps could do this, but now it's built in so you could have your reaction and whatever it is you're looking at. I think this is really smart for quick and simple content creation, but it doesn't record 2 separate video tracks, so you're not able to edit both of them later. It actually records the little thumbnail of you over top of the original video, and that's how it's saved. It's going to stay that way. So very useful for really quick non-edits where you don't want to put any work into it, but you're still going to want those third-party apps if you want to dig deeper. The entire iPhone lineup now has 120 Hz ProMotion display. It just means smoother playback with everything. Most of all, the interface doesn't really affect your images that much, but it's good that it's there. More importantly to me, they're all also 3000 nits of maximum output. That brightness is amazing. When it comes to like professional video monitors, you pay a lot more to get 3000 nits. So when you're outside, it means you're going to see your screen a little better. I did notice this while I was in the hands-on area comparing it to my iPhone 16 Pro. I could actually see that difference from the old 2000 nits up to 3000 now. It was visible. Another quick one they snuck in was the N1 chip. Now this is a networking chip, so it's meant to improve reliability with like Wi-Fi 7 and Bluetooth 6. But what was really exciting for photographers is they also said it's going to improve reliability of AirDrop. I've asked for this so many times. Like my number one complaint a lot of years is I just want AirDrop to work 100% of the time. Because when it works, I rely on it. Like I use it constantly, but it doesn't always work. So I'm really hoping that having this dedicated chip really gets it to like 100% functionality. Apple's updated their photonic engine, which is just their way of saying the image processing pipeline. And they do this every year, those little nudges. And sometimes they've gone into more detail than they did now. So I'm not sure how big of a change there will be. The one thing I found on the website is there's a new photographic style. It's called Bright. I haven't seen it yet, but they didn't mention it in the keynote. I want to try it out. But I am a little disappointed that we didn't see photographic styles come to video modes. Would have been nice because it sort of turns down some of the image processing. I'd like to see that on video as well. And while we're turning down processing, can we also turn down the sharpening a bit? I want to dial for that. I was really glad to see that Apple still hasn't added any kind of generative AI to the camera app. If you want to edit your photos like that, which I do, like I mess around with generative fill all the time, do it in another app. Take the photo and know that it's representing reality and then edit it somewhere else. Google has gone the other way, right? Like with the Pixel 10, it's making stuff up if you zoom in too far. But that's fun. I don't mind there being competition between the two companies. But something Google also did is they added C2PA, which is basically authentication to have some level of verification to how much the image has been edited with AI. And I really want Apple to be doing this. In fact, they should be leading the way. I think we'd all like to have a little more confidence in knowing whether an image is edited or not. And so if Apple's going to be selling the most popular camera in the world, I'd love to see them take the lead on this, and they haven't so far. And just before we get to the 17 Pro, I want to mention AirPods Pro 3, which they were announced at this event. This is my favorite accessory of all time. I love my AirPods, like I use them for everything. And I just want to raise a little flag here that if you remember back at WWDC, Apple did announce there's a bunch of new features coming to many of the AirPods, including AirPods Pro 2, AirPods 4, that are going to enable a bunch of creator tools. So you're going to be able to use the AirPods to trigger recording on your iPhone. And even more importantly, use it as a microphone, because right now it doesn't transmit the high quality audio from the mic. The mics are good, but the transmission is not. So usually the audio sounds terrible coming out of the AirPods, and it doesn't even send the signal to the camera app, so you can't record out of them. But they kind of announced that that's what's coming without a lot of clarity or storytelling around it, where I think this could be a big deal. Like, you know, I use things like the DJI wireless mics all the time. And if casual users that already have AirPods can now have a high quality mic just by wearing them, that could be a really big creator story to me. I want to follow up on it. Like, is that the new mic we could all be using? Or am I just confusing the feature here? Anyway, they didn't talk about it more, but I want to know more. And on to the 17 Pro and Pro Max, which come in the most colorful color that the Pros have ever offered. These are clearly the phones to go for if you really care about photo and video production. Let's start with something you probably haven't heard about yet. It wasn't in the keynote. Version 2.0 of Final Cut Camera was announced at the same time as everything else via a press release, but there's all these cool little details that were hidden in there. So for example, ProRes RAW, that was announced at the keynote, which is an insane feature to be available inside of the iPhone. But when you dig deeper, you see that also enables open gate, meaning you can use the full taller sensor of the phone while you're recording. This is a very powerful tool. Traditionally, it was used so filmmakers could have better frame coverage with their anamorphic lenses, but now it's great because let's say you're shooting vertical and horizontal at the same time, you've got a little bit more room to crop on the top and bottom if you want to use the same footage for both. And after all of that, Blackmagic announced that now DaVinci is going to support ProRes RAW, which is fantastic because that is the gold standard for color grading, and it has not supported ProRes RAW until now. So this is actually really big news. But just so you know, if you want to do ProRes RAW, it does have to record to an external SSD. You can't shoot into the internal memory of the iPhone. By the way, that memory now can go up to 2 terabytes on the iPhone Pro Max, only the Max, not the regular Pro. Speaking of Blackmagic, they updated the Blackmagic Camera app, which they work very closely with Apple. So you're going to find all of these features in both Final Cut Camera 2 and in Blackmagic. But along with that, they also announced the Pro Dock, which is a piece of hardware that enables features like Genlock. That's a very professional feature, but it lets you sync up a whole bunch of phones perfectly, like at Hollywood levels. And this is what they're doing in movies like 28 Years Later, or you do it for multicam. Very powerful, and this looks like a cool piece of hardware. And then I noticed references to Apple Log 2. If you watched my channel before, Apple Log is the game changer that happened back on the iPhone 15 Pro. It's really what let us have professional video quality out of the iPhone. So the fact that they're already redesigning that log profile to some extent is really interesting. We don't know what those changes are yet. Looks like there's probably going to be a different color gamut, probably aces. I don't know. We got to see, but I'm going to test this out as soon as I get my hands on it. And that does mean I'm going to have to design a whole new version of my LUTs, which I've been working on, but now I'm going to have to take another look at them and make sure that they are up to par. Now getting into the meat of the updates here, the cameras are now all 48 megapixels. Great news. This kind of should happen a while ago. We've been waiting a long time. So the ultra wide, the main, and the telephoto. And all the updates here really center around that telephoto lens. That is the most exciting piece. If you made the mistake of looking at rumors, which were hard to avoid this year, everybody was saying there's going to be an 8 times optical zoom lens. If you remember last year, I was complaining that 5 times is too much. Like the jump between 2x and 8x is enormous. That is impractical. So I was very relieved that this is actually a 4 times zoom lens. That is the optical lens they decided to add, which is perfect for me. It's a step back from 5, and importantly, the sensor got a lot bigger, 56% bigger according to Apple. So that means that if you crop in to that 4 times, you also get a nice 8 times zoom. This is the way to do it. I'm so glad that Apple took the approach that I was hoping for. I'd say that normal people that aren't into photography like that extended reach because they're usually just trying to read a sign from across the street. But photographers, people that have a background with nicer cameras, generally don't want that much zoom most of the time because something like 100 millimeters, which is what the 4X is a much more sensible like portrait lens. It's more useful more of the time. Both models have larger batteries. They say the largest ever in an iPhone, so hopefully that also means the longest battery life ever. And they've also added fast charging for MagSafe, which just makes MagSafe a lot more useful if you can actually keep up with plugged-in speeds for charging. And this is helpful for filmmaking. If you need to charge while you have accessories plugged in, you can keep it all going at once. But that brings us to overheating, which I've had a lot of problems with. Like the iPhone 16 Pro overheats all the time for me. And it's terrible when it does because all of a sudden your screen goes dark. Like if you're outside and it's hot out, sometimes you're looking at a screen that is so dim, it's basically unusable. You can't see it anymore and you got to wait for it to cool down. So they have addressed this. One of the ways is with the aluminum unibody design, which is supposed to disperse heat more. And they've brought some of those components into the new larger plateau of the screen. Looking at it hands-on, that is bigger. It's taller, more proud than on the 16 Pro. They're saying the new A19 Pro chip should be 40% more efficient at sustained processes. That should help with overheating. But maybe most importantly, they added a dedicated vapor chamber that is going to take a lot of that heat away from the main A19 processor. I really hope this works because it needs to get substantially better. Like if it's just twice as long, that doesn't help. I need it to not overheat for like 10 times as long, and that's when it'll solve my problem. Now, as promised, I've got some image samples. Let's take a quick look. I had a limited amount of time to play with these phones, but it was exciting to be able to airdrop myself some of the photos. So let's just look at a few samples that I think are interesting. So this is on the main camera. We're looking at one of the all-time great tech YouTubers, Dave2D. I think you can agree that he's looking good here. Again, there wasn't a huge change on the main camera, so I wouldn't expect to see much different here. A more interesting example is right here. So these were shot on the 16 and the 17 Pro. And ignore the streaks in the corner because those are just because my screen is dirty. And instead, let's zoom in on something more interesting. So starting with the 16 Pro, just take a look at the kind of noise pattern behind me. We're going to zoom in all the way to 400%. We're not like looking at resolution necessarily. This is sort of like what happens after the noise is removed. Here are the artifacts left over. And switching over to that area of the same image, it looks so much cleaner. Like there is both more sharpness, more detail, and less of those artifacts. A much cleaner image. And it is actually cropped in on the sensor. Like we're not using the full square sensor like we mentioned before. It's a wider lens as well. And it still feels kind of like less distorted. Everything is a lot better. More clean colors, less aggressive processing. To a lot of people, these new selfie cameras are going to be enough reason to upgrade on their own. And reminder, they are in all of the new iPhones, 17, Air, and 17 Pro. Now let's take a look at the whole zoom range so we can kind of see how far this can go and keep your eyes on this orange dot here in the center. So this is the ultra wide, the 0.5 lens. This is the 1x main camera. This is cropped in 2 times to give you that 2x artificial camera. This is a digital crop. And now we're at the 4 times lens. This is 100 millimeter equivalent, and cropped into that is the 8 times 200 millimeter effective lens. I got a quick comparison between the 5 times iPhone 16 Pro lens on the left and the 4 times iPhone 17 Pro lens on the right. And one thing to note here is that color difference is partly due to having a photographic style applied to the iPhone 16 that I didn't sync them up. So not a great comparison. Don't look at the colors. Instead, let's zoom in and look at the overall sort of sharpness and tonal profile here. I just see a lot less artificial sharpening and more real detail on this 4X lens. Maybe the best example I'm seeing is under my collar here, where it is starting to break apart a little bit on the 16 Pro, and it has more of a smooth gradient here on the 17. I don't want to read into this too much. I've got to shoot way more tests, but I just want to give you a taste of it. And here's that 4 times lens focusing as close as it can. So all of that bokeh you can see in the background, that is real. There's nothing digital about it. That is optical lens bokeh. And here is another example of it. We can flip back and forth. There is Apple Park in focus in the background compared to the flowers. Again, this is the real separation you get with a long lens like that. And of course, this gives you so many creative opportunities to have this real depth of field because of the larger sensor. I can't wait to play around with this more. I would say that a few years ago, camera performance started to plateau for average day-to-day users. Like, it's just good enough for most people most of the time. But the pro features, they just keep marching on, and I appreciate so many of the little details here. If you upgrade every year, which nobody does, it may feel incremental, but those increments add up a lot. So if you're upgrading from an older phone, I feel like this could be a nice bump. Obviously, I'll be testing them out more thoroughly, so stay tuned. I'll see you guys in the next video.